So we've now defined torque as a vector cross product R cross F. Now in chapter 3, we did vectors and we skipped some things. We did adding vectors and subtracting vectors. Okay, so we did that. And then when we were doing work and energy, we introduced the idea of dot products. Okay, so we introduced how dot products work. Now we're going to go back because that was in chapter 3, so we did that. So now what we want to do is we want to go back and do vector cross product. So let's do an example here of a vector cross product. So we have vector A. Vector A is AXI plus AYJ plus AZK. Vector B, BXI plus BYJ plus BZK. And I want to know what happens if I have A cross B. Well, A cross B is going to be AXI plus AYJ plus AZK cross BXI plus BYJ plus BZK. So what we're going to get here is that's going to be AX BX I cross I plus AX BY I cross J plus AX BZ I cross K plus AY BX J cross I plus AY BY J cross J plus AY BZ J cross K plus AZ BX K cross I plus AZ BZ K cross J plus AZ, it's AZBY. So AZBZ K cross K. Okay, so now we just got to figure that out. Because you remember when we did the vector dot product, we found out a way of simplifying all this. So let's look at it and say, well, what is I cross I? Well, that is going to be equal to 1 times 1 times the sine of the angle between I and I. So that's 0. Well, that's 0. Anytime you have two vectors that are parallel, the cross product between them is 0. Remember, for dot products, the dot product between parallel vectors is 0, or between perpendicular vectors is 0. But for parallel vectors, the cross product is 0. So that means this term is 0. Well, that also means this term is 0. And that also means that this term is 0. So great. So we've now simplified some things. Okay, so what else? Well, the next term is I cross J. So what is I cross J? Well, you imagine you got the X, Y, and then Z is out of the board, out of the page, okay, axes. So if you put your hand in the X direction, curl your fingers to Y, your thumb points to Z. So that's K. In fact, that's how we define the Z direction, is using the right-hand rule. So I cross J is going to be K. Well, what would J cross I be? Well, that's the opposite direction, so that's minus K. So J cross I is going to be minus K. So we got J cross I is over here, that's minus K. Okay, so that means this now looks like AX BY minus AY BX K. Okay. So then we say, well, what is I cross K? So we'll get I cross K. And so again, imagine the X, Y, and then Z is out of the here. So you put your hand in the X direction, you curl your fingers to point out of the screen, and so that's going to be the minus J direction. Okay, so that means that K cross I is going to be J. Okay, so that means this is going to be minus J, and this is going to be J. So we have AZ BX minus AX BZ, and that's in the J direction. Okay, and so now we got one left, and so we want to find out what's that going to be. And so we look at it and say, okay, so what we still have J and K. So again, J cross K is, and imagine, you know, we got the X, we got the Y, got Z out of the page. So J is in the Y direction. Put your hand in that direction. Curl your fingers to point out of the screen, and your thumb points in the X direction. So that would be X. So K cross J is going to be minus. Okay. So that means that we can then say that AYBZ minus AZBY in the I direction. So let's make this look neater. A cross B. Okay. So in the I direction, okay, this is going to be equal to AYBZ minus AZBY. Okay. In the Y direction, this is going to be AZBX minus AXBZ. And then in the K direction, AXBY minus AYBX. So there we have it. Okay, so now you have an example here. Well, I'm about to do an example here. We'll use this. Now, when I was a student, I used to have a tough time remembering the order of all these things, and I hate trying to memorize. So what I did was I said, okay, I know that everything's perpendicular to the original. So in the X direction, there's not going to be any X's in here at all. In the Y direction, there's going to be no Y's, and in the Z direction, there's going to be no Z's. So in the X direction, it's just going to be Y's and Z's. In the Y direction, it's only going to be X's and Z's. And then in the Z direction, only going to be X's and Y's. And then I, just remembered X, Y, Z, X, Y, Z, X, Y, Z. That's the order of the alphabet, right? So if you go that way, it's positive. If you go this way, it's negative. So Y, Z is going this way, but Z, Y is going that way. ZX is going this way, but XZ is going that way. XY is going this way, and then YX is going that way. And so that helped me remember which is plus and which is minus. That's just my little trick. Other people use other different tricks to do it, but this is how I remember to do vector cross products. So this is our little foray back into chapter 3 and showing how to do vector cross products.